In the first video of this tutorial, we introduced ourselves to the basic notion behind strict liability. That there are some situations where the law holds a defendant liable even without a finding of fault, such as negligence, intent, etc. This video and the next one are both meant to provide a brief survey of the situations where you'll most often see strict liability imposed, together with a discussion of the very limited defenses available to a defendant for strict liability. One situation where strict liability often arises is in the context of an abnormally dangerous activity. If the following factors are present, then you'll most likely have an abnormally dangerous activity. Here are some factors to look for when determining whether or not you have an abnormally dangerous activity. 1. The activity creates a high risk of significant harm, which cannot be eliminated even with the exercise of reasonable care by all actors, and the risk is reasonably foreseeable to the defendant. 2. The activity is not a matter of common usage or is not commonly carried on in the local community or area. 3, and somewhat related to the second factor, some courts will ask whether the character or nature of the activity is inappropriate or out of place in the local community. And 4, the plaintiff's injury must flow solely or almost solely from that aspect of the activity which makes it abnormally dangerous, and must not depend on the actions of persons other than the defendant engaging in the activity. Therefore, where the overall safety level of the activity is subject to the influence of other persons by the defendant, who could make it safe through reasonable care, the activity will not usually be considered an abnormally dangerous activity. Another way to say this is that the unavoidable and high dangerousness of the activity must adhere to the activity itself and not be dependent on the influence of outside forces. However, bear in mind that, according to the legal principles synthesized in the restatement, one carrying on an abnormally dangerous activity is subject to strict liability for the resulting harm, although it is caused by A. innocent, negligent, or reckless conduct of a third person, or B. action of an animal, or C. operation of a force of nature. 5. Some courts have been known to ask whether the social and economic usefulness of the activity to the defendant and other parties is so great as to outweigh the danger and thus make the activity a non-abnormally dangerous activity. But the third restatement of torts moves away from this approach. The analysis is not a checklist so much as it is an evaluation of the factors to determine whether the total circumstances indicate that the activity places someone in the plaintiff's position at an unusual and high risk of harm, even when carried on with unreasonable care. Usually, the most important factor will be the level of reasonably foreseeable danger that cannot be eliminated with reasonable care. Common usage in the community is about as important. Sometimes the impact of one factor will be so great that it overwhelms the others and makes the activity an abnormally dangerous activity, even without the other factors. For example, the second restatement of torts cites the production of atomic energy as so overwhelmingly dangerous that it's an abnormally dangerous activity no matter where it's carried on or how common or beneficial or appropriate it is for the community. The quizzes in the test will provide examples to help you make sense of these rules. That does it for abnormally dangerous activities. In the next video, we'll discuss strict liability on the part of people who keep animals, as well as some defenses to strict liability. But first, let's take a short quiz to test your understanding of these concepts.